So the first step is select a pot. Now selecting a pot is very important. The pot that you put a bonsai plant in is half of the artwork, okay? So you're going to think about the shape of the plant and what you want it to look like and how it's going to be positioned in the pot. I've chosen a tall urn-like pot because the plant that we're going to plant, actually when it gets mature and grows, it's going to go up, up, up like that, but then cascade down like a weeping willow. Right? Won't that be pretty? Okay, so the first thing we do is get some rocks. Just clunky rocks, doesn't matter what they are, and we put them in the bottom. That way the soil doesn't clog up the drain hole and you're going to always have drainage. Okay? Next thing we do is we put some soil in the pot. Okay, this is an elephant's food bush. Why do they call it elephant's food bush? Because elephants eat it. So, if you have elephants in your neighborhood, I really don't recommend this plant. Because elephants are known to eat this and eat it and eat it until they're so full they can't eat another bite. And then they pack up a whole bunch in their trunks and drive home. Okay, look at that. What do you think? Now, I have a super secret spot where I put plants that I want to do bonsai some years down the road, and I abuse them. And I just let them grow and get old and gnarly and beat up. And then after some years, this has probably been a few years sitting in my super secret spot, then we bring it out and we're going to do magic with it. So, you're looking at it and you probably say to yourself, I feel like a mosquito in a nudist colony. I don't know where to start. So, what I do first is just start somewhere. And you can't exactly see what I'm doing. Maybe I can swing around and try to do this. I'm just going to dive in and I'm going to start removing some of the lower branches. This is a very delicate pruning tool done in the sun. Very effective in combat though. So I'm just going to start getting a view here and prune off some of the bottom branches so that we can see trunk structure. Also, we look for branches inside that cross over each other and tangle. So we're going to be clearing those out too. And I'm ripping some off with my hands because that's what us elephants do. And I'm going to Okay, if you're ever doing a bonsai at your home and you prune off these branches, you might say to yourself, boy, you know, if I stuck that branch in the ground, it might probably grow and I could grow a new plant. Do not do that. You take those branches and you step away from them, throw them in the trash, and then come buy some more from us. Now, as you go along, what you do is you're making decisions. You're going, do I want to save this branch or do I want to cut it off? And a lot of times if I'm not sure, I just save it because I can always cut it off later. However, if you cut it off and you needed it, that's more problematic. Okay. We're having a ball today. Root ball. Okay. So that's not a bad start, right? You can see that? Now we don't like to leave nubs where we pruned. That's a bonsai no-no. They have all kinds of special tools that can cost you up to $500 a pair of clippers to make the perfect indented clean cut. That's why I'm so careful. Okay, let's get our bonsai pot back up here. Now, when I put that in the pot, I don't want it to be level. I'm going to put it in so it's actually, the root ball is a little higher, because that way we can strip away some of the soil and see some of the cool roots, like an ancient old tree, right? So I'm going to pack a little more soil in there. Now, another thing that I do sometimes is, in addition to our very high quality potting and canning soil, I still add just some regular old dirt, because it's very solid and very stable. So I've kind of put in a layer of that, and let's measure and see how we come out now. Nope, not high enough. Okay, now before I put it in, when we plant it in higher, we don't want to have this top ring look like the top of a root ball that was in a can. So I'm going to get a very special root pruning tool, and we'll show you how we're going to address that. See, this is very physical. This will get you in good shape. Then you can go and move on to those black belt competitions. So you just see with the shovel, I'm just trimming off some of those straight corners in the top area there. And you can see it's extremely important to be very delicate with your plant. There we go. That looks pretty nice. Okay, now, this is where I'm going to use some more of the regular dirt. And the reason I'm going to do that, ma'am, could you hold this up there for me? Sure. This is my assistant. What's your name?
Che. C-H-E. Che.
Che. This is my assistant, Che. All right. She's going to hold that in place while we get some more dirt. Good. Okay. Let's take a look at that now. Okay. Now, what you want to do is take a look at the whole balance of the tree. I had Che tip it towards her, but I don't like that, because we're not worried about this trunk being straight. We're worried about the shape and the direction of the overall plant. So when I'm looking at it, I actually angle it back a little bit, because then this main trunk has a little bit more vertical height. Okay, so now we're going to wedge it in. Thank you, Che. You can have a seat now. Appreciate it. Done that part, so now let's go in and do some shaping. So I'm going to go in, I'm looking for branches that tangle inwards or cross over, and we're going to start pruning those out. And as we do that, you'll be able to see more and more trunk, and you'll be able to see its character. Also, we look for branches that grow into each other and are tangled, but we also look for branches that overlap each other, going the same direction, and I'll usually eliminate some of those. So branch structure is really important on how your overall bonsai looks. Okay, now this is a decision point. See how this big branch is overlapped by that big branch? Not really a good setup. So what I think I'll do, I don't want to lose this branch here. This has really good shape and character to it. And so I'm going to leave that one, and I'm going to consider removing this one. But I kind of like it. So I have another option. You might have read some bonsai books, and what they might do is take some very heavy copper wire and bend this, right? Bend it in place. You can do that, but I can't afford copper wire. So I'm going to do something that you can do with succulents you can't do with other plants. I'm bending it and breaking its bones. And I'm heading it another direction. Now, believe it or not, that'll all heal up. And I've just changed its direction, and it's not overlapping that branch anymore. Now, succulents can look a little geeky. That's the thing about succulent bonsais, is if they look like a succulent, they're not going to really look like a natural tree all that much. So we have some tricks for that. So I'm just going to finish cleaning in here a little bit. Okay, now, like I said, the foliage right now is not that critical because it'll grow back. We're mainly looking for shape and structure. It does look quite different than when we started, right? Now, the only thing about this now is it still looks a little gawky. It still looks a little bit like a weird succulent plant, not quite like an ancient tree. So we're going to work on the shape up above. But as I told you, I want to preserve this height because as it gets bigger, I'll probably teach this branch to grow that way and get bigger and stronger and taller. And then the whole thing will cascade down like a weeping willow. And that'll be pretty. We're almost done. Well, at least with the pruning part. Okay, so I'm going to head that way. So here's the thing. You can make branches and plants grow the direction you want them to go. So I don't want it to grow that direction anymore. So I cut and tip that, but I leave a branch that's growing the other direction. Then it's going to put its strength in that, and it'll start growing that way and filling in. Also, I tip all these just so they'll start filling in more compact. Okay, now, this is a very delicate part next. See, these stems look like succulent stems. That's always the part that irritated me. I just didn't think that that's that cool. You know, it doesn't give the bonsai look that I wanted. So, I found out that if we scar these trunks, then they will heal, but when they heal, it looks like bark instead of succulent skin. So we use some very delicate tools for that, and we wail on it. You know, you can slice it, you can do spirals, you can cut into it, you can carve out chunks, you can do all kinds of things. Slice it up, beat it, take the tip of the saw, dig in, and if you come and look, you'll see where I did that on this side some time ago. And this makes just a really pretty, looks like bark of an ancient tree. And you can do this off and on throughout the period. The only thing is with elephant food bush plants, don't do that in the winter because they don't grow in the winter, they can't heal. Also, I learned to only do it on one side at a time because if you do it on both sides, sometimes you can girdle the trunk and it'll die. Okay, so that's pretty much it. We're done. Okay, now you'll come back and see this maybe in a few months and it'll have that beautiful head and gorgeous stem, but we're not done because bonsai also includes what you do underneath. It needs to look like a landscape. So if I get big bulky succulents and stick them in, it's going to look out of scale because remember, everything is supposed to look miniature, right? So we're creating a miniature outdoor scene underneath. So I like to get some stones and some rocks and some tiny little plants that are in scale to make a planting in the bottom. So rocks are very important in bonsai, how they're selected, how they're chosen. You want to get some of different sizes, and just like in the landscape, you don't just lay them on top per se, you like to snuggle them into the ground so that they look like they were naturally there for a long time. And in fact, I'll take some rocks and place them side by side, just like you see on a mountaintop, so it looks like where it was a larger rock that's starting to fracture away. Group the rocks together a little bit. Now, how would you like to see my underplants? No, underplants. Underplants. So we look for little miniature tiny things. This is going to be a light colored yellow-green foliage. So I'm going to look for something that's dark green to plant underneath. One of them that's really good for that is this little erodium plant. Okay, this will have little pink flowers off and on throughout the year. And we don't want to overdo it because these little plants will grow and spread. And so I think I'll also take a little bit of green sedum and do a spot of that on this side. Throw a little dirt on top of them and they'll root right in. A little bit of soil here behind my plant. Okay, and then lastly, you can take some gravel or some sand and create a little lagoon or something on one side. Okay, and I'm looking for my last little sand sample. There we go. Now I'm doing the pebbles and the sand in 2 layers because just like on a beach when you're at the river, it's finer sand, then larger pebbles, then stone. And so we're kind of creating that look right here. Voila. All done. And that's all grown in, that's a few $100.